Muito bom, gente. I'm the curator of this series. And hi, everybody. I'm so excited that you joined us for Syndicate's Friday night performance series with Baltimore-based artist Liz Clayton Scofield. My name is James Mayhew. I'm the curator of this series, and this is the first performance of 14 total artists who will be bringing us live performances on Fridays between tonight and the end of April 2021. I'm the curator of this series. For the full schedule, you can go to syndicate.net. Hi, everybody. I'm so
a little bit about the
that you
Syndicate
joined us for
project.
Syndicate's Friday
Syndicate
night
was started
performance
by
series with
artist Zoe
Baltimore-based
Charlton and
artist
Tim
Liz
Dowd.
Clayton Schofield.
It's a collaborative art
My name is
project
James
created to
Mayhew.
support
I'm the
experimental
curator of
work,
this series,
to promote
and this is the
practice-based
first performance
research,
of
and to
14
foster
total
art-centered
artists who will be bringing us
conversations.
live performances.
We are committed
on
to
Fridays between tonight
anti-racism,
and the end of
anti-bias,
April 2021.
and building
I'm the
inclusive and
curator of the
collaborative
full schedule. You
art-centered
can go to
projects.
syndicate.net.
Hi,
The Friday
everybody.
performance
I'm
series
so-
first started in 2016, and we found ourselves in a year that we now know would change our lives pretty dramatically. I curated 3 different performances that year, all sort of in response to both our political context and to events like the Pulse nightclub shooting. I feel so lucky to be able to be working with Tim and Zoe to resurrect this series while we find ourselves at a time when we need art more than ever to help us understand, to listen, to protest, to laugh, to cry, and to feel less alone, or even just acknowledge our loneliness. Art can bring us hope, and this is something that I feel that I need, and I'm sure that you may be also looking for. I'm so happy to introduce Liz Clayton Scofield as our inaugural performance with their piece LiZez Live in 2020 Technicolor Vision, a play in 100 acts. Liz has been working on this series with 3D printed images of themselves for a number of years, so tonight you'll see just one act of this ongoing series. A little about Liz. Liz Clayton Scofield is a cloud, but also Liz Clayton Scofield, they, them, their pronouns, is an interdisciplinary artist, writer, wanderer, public crier, cat dad, and collaborator, currently based in Baltimore, Maryland. They are interested in play as care, maps, oranges, and learning as practice of freedom. Their creative practice involves a lived performance in collaboration with tiny toy versions of themselves, where they explore how to play, how to connect with others, and how to love, among other things. This performance will be interactive, so please make sure to leave comments as Liz prompts you to during the performance. And last but not least, if you can see the AR code at the bottom of the screen, you can use that to leave a tip for Liz on Liz's Venmo. If you don't use AR codes, that's fine. Liz's handle on Venmo is L Scofield on Venmo. The performance will last for about 30 minutes, and I will join Liz for a Q&A directly afterwards. You'll be able to leave questions and comments in the chat on YouTube. And with that said, I'd love to welcome Liz to the feed. Liz Clayton Scofield for LiZez Live in 2020 Technicolor Vision, a play in 100 acts.
That's funny. Oh my God. There's like
Hi. You okay, Liz?
Hello.
Hello. Thank you so much. It was so nice to see you from like two different angles on this, and like be able to see you both like making the work and the like video angle of the work. It was almost like having a behind the scenes footage, and hearing myself twice. There's some kind of weird echo.
Oh. Oh, it might be the stream. I just hear you, but it might be is it the stream on YouTube echoing? Or I guess it wouldn't. Because I don't have YouTube.
It's okay.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah. Maybe it is the stream on YouTube. I feel old now, yes. That might be it. Yes, thank you. So thank you so much for that. And I was really excited about like both like the getting to experience one of your performances live, and then also like the chat was like really lively too, and seemed like a really great place for people to be able to be social. And I think I closed the YouTube chat, so I can't see questions that folks might have. But one thing while I pull this up is that I was thinking about, it's like in the very beginning, you asked, it was a conversation between two of the LiZez, and you said, "Are we real?" The other one said, "Does it matter?" And then the next one said,
Uh-oh. I lost you, James. Yes. Is this still streaming?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Hi, James.
"Hi, did you?" I don't know how much of my question you heard.
It was building up. I was really excited.
Um,
But it's you were talking about the phone conversation. Are we real? Does it matter? And then I lost you.
Okay, so are we real?
Oh, oh no.
Your humanity. And there's, I think I'm frozen again.
Yeah, Zoom doesn't want you to ask this question.
Yeah, I think so. So I'm going to try to mute my video and then try to ask it just over audio and see if that helps.
Okay.
So the question is, like in the beginning, the phone conversation, are we real? Does it matter? And then remember your humanity. And like there's kind of this like real doesn't mean that you have to be human in this way. I think that like is where the question is going. But like you assign humanity to these figures, and like I think that that's like really interesting. And I wanted to know if you could talk about that, or some of the things that you've been reading around that, because I know that you read a lot. So yeah.
Yeah, well, it started with the phone, and I wanted the phone to be like this vehicle for a conversation, and I wanted the conversation to be a little bit I think a lot with the LiZez and our ongoing performance that I developed this relationship with them. So as objects, I think about their animacy and their agency and how they become more than what is their material. So in that, I wanted to be playful of like using this to be like, everyone remember our humanity, but using these toys that I have this really deep intimacy with to relay that, and think what are they, and what is that relationship, and what material is that relationship, and how do I project onto them almost as like a prosthetic of myself. So I wanted, to use that as an opportunity to like layer that with like, as like flesh humans, to remember that as well with like these toy humans.
Yeah, I'm seeing like comments from people in the feed of asking like, is this even real anyway, or does it matter if it's real? One like really interesting thing is like, do you consider this to be camp in some way?
It cut out a little bit, but you were asking if I consider it to be camp. I don't know if there was okay. I definitely have an important relationship to humor, but like as far as camp, I feel like, I don't know, from my own, like I feel like camp is like external, like can I consider my own work camp, I guess is my question.
Right, because maybe
I think I approach it with like,
sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I guess I'm thinking of it like very sincerely, and I guess with like my earnestness might camp evolve. I have some giggles over here, but
I mean, I kind of wonder, like with, oh, I can't tell if you're talking or not. Sorry. We're having so many tech issues, but this is like part of it, right? But I promise, like my internet has been like solid in my studio this whole time until now. So of course, yes, thank you. So like when Liz made this amazing technical difficulties screen just in case it happens. Yes, yeah, it's amazing. But like,
Patrick has a question, so I can take this question and then maybe you will have a question. What is Patrick's question?
What's your process for composing a play?
Oh, what's my process for composing a play? It's important for me to like maintain improvised elements. So like the play needs to be spontaneous. And I don't know really how I'm going to do things, but I do write a score for a play. So I think, James has mentioned like this is an ongoing work, and I've been developing my collaboration with the LiZez for years. And so there are like tricks and tools of how to create narrative with them that I use kind of like any improvisational skill. And then writing a score is like, I'll know sort of a structure of this is what I sort of want the narrative arc to be. Like I knew that in this there'd be an introduction, that there would be the disclaimer and the public service announcement, and I knew I'd end with voting. So there's this arc that I've created, and the props and text, of course, then really like structure that. But then how that unfolds and really what happens, like I don't have the score with me when I'm performing, just sort of arrange things. So how things unfold, I've been thinking about like generative unfolding with improvisation. Is it, I think it's important for me for the spirit of play, for it to not be rehearsed or planned, that like you're seeing the failure and the flaw and the creativity unfold. And yeah, this is the first time that I in live versions of a Liz's live, like not like an in-person live version of Liz's live, I will have like the sort of more structured set where I'm performing, and then that can break into like playing well with others, so interactive elements. So it's interesting. This is the first time of like incorporating the sort of prompt interactivity. So that, you know, there you can see like a little bit more of a totally unplanned improv.
There's another question. What are other conditions, ideas, or emotions that are meditated through this experience of assigning object agency? Who are you and who do you become?
Can you repeat it?
Yes. What are other conditions, ideas, or emotions that are meditated through this experience of assigning object agency? Who are you and who do you become?
Oh, who's that from?
Zoe Charlton.
Oh, that's an amazing question. And I think it's one thing, I think this work can exist in, like the essence of this work is durational and unfolding. Like this is a lived performance. So what you see is like a practice of it, and a practice of learning to play, and a practice of sharing that. But the time of collaborating with the Liz's and developing that relationship, and understanding and learning and becoming myself through my relationship with this object, is one that takes time and unfolds and unfolds and changes. So there's this, you know, bizarre way of when I conceived the Liz's, you know, it started as like I'm thinking about like creating myself as an object to change my relationship to myself. But it was a very small seed, and I didn't know, and an experiment. So I don't know how at that point, like, can you change yourself through your relationship with your object, or can you learn about yourself through a relationship with an object? And I still don't know, of course, but but I can say like I have learned how to play in new ways, and I have become, I do have a very different relationship to my like fleshy body, and I have changed like radically in a lot of ways, and understand myself differently. So there is this like continuing interest in like play as a transformative practice, and play as an act of care and intimacy, and exploring and learning that care and intimacy by caring for myself as an object, but then in turn learning that care and intimacy and play for myself, and then in turn learning how to share that with others. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, totally. Also, I misread the question. It's mediated, not meditated, but it's still answered, I think.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What this is a fully formed thought. Like, what informs sort of the like visual landscape that you create? Like, you have so many different colors and like moving things and bright fun objects. Like, what led you to that direction?
I think I want to be really like devoted to a like a playful aesthetic, so that like the, you know, color, but more like the materials. I think like even to like I have this like patch of like brown house carpet. It's like a brown rug, but it's like reminds me of like childhood home brown house carpet. So when I think about the materials, I try to think of like things as a kid you would have in your home. So repurposing materials, using like bits of scrapbook paper, because there's this like weird domestic, not, you know, not weird, but like there's this very like specific domestic use of scrapbook paper. But yeah, just having like making things that from objects that you would have around a house, and using food. I try, or like, you know, toys, trying to repurpose toys, and in the way that the LiZez have this ongoing relationship with me, these objects, is sort of like use them and reuse them and reuse them and transform them, and you know, explore different contexts with them. So trying to be resourceful just in not wasting things. But bright, yeah, I mean, the LiZez lend themselves to bright colors, and play lends itself to just, yeah, bright, fun, masking tape, rainbows and clouds and cotton. It just, you know, if it makes me like, you know, feel fuzzy inside, that's a good sign.
We got some more in the chat over here.
Okay.
During the steps of a pandemic, number 5 encouraged to write letters to friends. Surprisingly or unsurprisingly, folks in the group chat instantaneously started to write letters to each other, sweet, kind, and often hilarious letters that spoke to their humanity. Can you speak to the animation of humanity as prompted by inanimate objects, and can humanity be in suspension? You want me to reread the last part?
Yeah.
Can you speak to the animation of humanity as prompted by inanimate objects, and can humanity be in suspension?
One more time.
Okay, yeah, it's a hard one. Can you speak to the animation of humanity as prompted by inanimate objects?
Okay, pause.
Yeah.
Can I speak to
The animation,
of
So
humanity?
I think they're talking about like bringing humanity into inanimate objects.
Yes. And can humanity be suspended? I don't know if this is, but I mean, I like having relationships with objects. The part of my collaboration with the LiZez is wandering around outside and sort of doing this sort of improvised play in public. And at one point I was balancing a yellow Liz on a fence, overlooking the railroad train track, on 26th and St. Paul, in Baltimore. If you're here and can place yourself geographically. So I was balancing the yellow Liz on the fence, and it was probably 6 feet above the ground. And the Liz fell to the sidewalk, and lost a foot. And it still, like, I mourn that. I feel like abusive. I'm sad. And that's not the first time or the last time or the only time that a Liz has lost a limb or a head. But it's really sad. And I don't know if that answers the question. I don't know. No.
Can you talk about the planned versus spontaneous in the written parts of the performance? That's the question.
Can you say it again?
Can you talk about the planned versus the spontaneous in the written parts of the performance?
Versus spontaneous in the written part. Oh, okay. Yeah, it ranges. This performance, the text was more planned. I have things written down. Some performances I'll use more like dry erase or write on mirrors or that kind of thing. And just in a practical way that takes time. And I want to take time. I want to be comfortable with the performance taking time and being slow. And in writing. So, but I also knew there was a particular time frame that I was working within here and a structure. So I took time and wrote the text mostly. But also you saw some. I did use some dry erase. So there are different strategies that I would use for improvising text, and sometimes it's more, in and out. But the text, it helps for me to ground the more improvised parts, like playing around the text, so that text and poetry becomes like a narrative thread that allows some structure for the rest to be playful and work with the different props. So it sort of grounds me and lets me know like these are like the bases and this is the thread for how I'm getting from the beginning to the next beginning of this thing.
I'm back, everyone. Sorry about the tech glitch. I remember when I first met you that you talked so much about the idea of becoming. We're so, you're talking about like beginnings and new beginnings, but then I also I really appreciate in your performances that you take your time and like you're very like intentional about what you're presenting to people, and but it's also like, the LiZez are always falling over like in your performances. Like it's just like part of like the thing is like you're just sort of like you're making this thing and you're letting it kind of be play. It never feels completely rehearsed. So I really appreciate that question from Tim about that, because like even if you have like some of it sort of rehearsed, you've written out the cue cards beforehand, it doesn't feel totally rehearsed or like refined in a way, which is like really refreshing about it. And I wanted to also thank for stepping in when I was having tech glitches. I'm so glad that they're there. So I wanted to ask a question from Zoe. Zoe commented, I think about this so much, how care or the way objects and ideas in our care have a real relationship to how we care for each other and for ourselves. And she said, do you ever wonder about the spaces between the idea of human as object or objectifying versus object as reservoir, metaphor for something bigger than human? And I think that your work does address that a lot, because I know that you've been working with the LiZez for a long time, and these were LiZez that were a very different Liz than you are now. And so this whole idea of constantly becoming in the sort of Deleuzian Elizabeth Gross kind of way is really important to you. So at this point, what do these objects hold for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one thing that I think about with them, a conversation that I sort of have with them ongoing is and even in the phone conversation, and the play, thinking about yeah, they are me. They're made in an image of me, but a very different image of me. You know, moving forward, you know, there's this 5-year relationship. And so, you know, I have this conversation with them of like, if I change my name, what is your name? And that's a way that I think about like how I change, and how I have the opportunity to transform, and you know, what is their opportunity, or they're also thinking about not like setting a hierarchy of versions of self. Like, you, there's a really wonderful Ross Gay essay from the Book of Delights where he's writing about moisturizing his body with coconut oil. And every time he does that, he like imagines like all like, you know, his baby self and like moisturizing his like baby version of Ross Gay that is in him with coconut oil. So I think about that now every time I use lotion, but also I think about it like with the LiZez of, you know, what is, as if you're becoming, also you always hold, like that is always within me. And I don't, there's just an interesting tendency to like set a hierarchy of like, well, I'm a better, new and improved version, and I try to like honor them and celebrate them for what we were and what they continue to be, and how that allows me to grow, but also to, you know, nurture this love of different versions, that and that I am proud to show up as who I am today. So it complicates it because that, you know, it's like I do want to be showing up as I am and what I've learned from them. But how might that separate me from them too? And how does that complicate our intimacy? Like, I think about like, it could this, you know, is this relationship, as much as I like want to think about like caring for each other, like is it and you know, this is again a relationship with object and how I use them, but like is if I'm only sort of using them for my need to like become myself, like, you know, what are the issues with power between that, and how do I think about like activating them and, you know, serving their sort of, I guess in the performances, it's like, oh, I have this position of power, but I'm also like in service of them to help create their world. So I don't know.
I mean, it's so interesting because you can't, like, you're trying to sort of like talk against like hierarchies of power, but then, you know, how do you negotiate that when it is like you're wanting to sort of like give value to like the work that you've done, or the progress, for lack of a better word at the moment, that you've made, you know, and still give honor to like yourself in the past as well, and like be empathetic towards it. And that's a really interesting relationship. Yeah. Yeah. And Zoe commented, I love that, Liz. So
Thank you.
with that, if I haven't seen any other questions come up in the feed, but thank you so much for that performance. And I really appreciate you. And for everybody else out there, we'll be back in 2 weeks with a performance. It's going to be after Election Day, so I guess we'll have to watch out with Lita Chen. So, yeah. Yes, Baltimore votes. and hopefully
everybody
everywhere else
else
too. I think we might have one Canadian watching who does not have.
Oh,
She's very lucky. But, yeah, and you know her. So thank you so much, everybody, and we'll see you next time in a couple of weeks. And thank you, Liz, so much for your generosity. And
you.
oh my God, everybody's asleep. That's great. That's like what
Thank you, James, and everyone.
I also really appreciate that your cats were part of this. Like you just let them be a part, like when they wanted to be. That's great.
Yeah. Yep.
It's so
They
sweet.
think it's for them, and they won't accept any other.
It's so good. All right. Thank you so much. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.